Pythonistas who want to level up and light 'em up. It's Prof. Gene. In this CircuitPython School lesson, we're going to get loopy, exploring for loops with 1, 2, and 3-digit ranges, forward and reversed loops, and we'll try a host of challenges that, when completed, will show you're well on your way to masterful making skills. Let's code! In our last lesson, we took a look at CircuitPython sequences and saw how we could use sequences to control individual NeoPixel lights. This concept is especially awesome when combined with for loops. So to learn about for loops, plug in your CircuitPlayground and launch PyCharm. If you've been following along with our lessons, the last code we worked on is red-and-blue.py, and we're going to modify this with loops in just a bit. Let's see how they work. Now, there are different types of for loops in Python. This first one we're going to take a look at is the single value range. We say for, F-O-R, then give a variable name that will act as our index value. And this is going to change and increment each time we pass through the loop. So here the index value is named I, but we could use any valid Python variable name. You'll most commonly see index values named I, X, or the word index, but that's totally up to you. Sometimes another name might make sense. Then we'll use the keyword in, IN, and then specify a range function. And in between the parens, we pass in the number of times we want to go through the loop. But we don't start counting at 1, we're 0 index, so we start counting at 0, and we'll go up to, but we'll never reach this value. So in this example, we're going to go through the loop 5 times. We'll execute whatever is indented below the for statement 5 times. Each time we go through, we're going to increase the I value by 1, but we're never going to reach 5. So the first time we go through, I is equal to 0. We only have one line indented below the for loop, so we're going to print out 0. Then for the second pass, I is 1. We hit the indented code and we print out 1. The third pass, I is 2, then 3, then 4, which is the fifth pass, and then we're done with our loop. So then we execute whatever code is outdented after the loop. Here we've got the comment statement and then this print statement that says the loop is done. So we print out the loop is done. So to make sure we know how this works, let's enter this code in PyCharm and try it out. Now I'm going to keep the rest of this code here. We don't really care about the stuff up top, but I am going to delete the while true loop so that the code ends. I don't want an infinite loop. And let's enter for I in range, open paren and pass 5 into the range, colon at the end. Then when we press return here, just like the while loop, we're indented and we want to say print between parentheses I. Note that we're passing a variable in here, so I is going to print the contents of I. You don't want to put double quotes around I because that would just print the letter I. Now let's enter a print statement that will execute when we're done with the loop. So why don't we outdent? And to do that, you hold down the Shift key and press Tab. That should bring your cursor out so that it's even with the indentation of the for loop. And we can enter the comment, hashtag continue with code, and then below that, print, passing in the string, the loop is done. Now to see results, I'll open the PyCharm terminal, up arrow and press return to launch TO. Let's save and check the results in TO. We see 0 through 4 printed on each line. Remember, if you don't see things, you can scroll up and down in the terminal to follow your TO output. Nice. Now before our next challenge, let's see another type of for loop. This is a for loop with a 2-value range. Now the start is just like the prior loop. We have for, an index value. In here we'll use the name I again, then the keyword in, and our range. But between the parentheses of the range, we have 2 values in there separated by a comma. Now the first value is where we start our loop. In a single value range, we start at 0. In a 2-value range, this is where we start counting. So in this example here, the first value in the range is 5. That's going to be the first value that I has as it goes through the loop. Now the next value after the comma here doesn't mean we go through the loop 10 times. This is the stop value. We go up to, but we never reach this value. We stop just before we hit the number, and we increment by 1 each time. So if we have a 10 in here, in this sample code, we're going to start at 5, then 6, then 7, then 8, then 9, and we stop. We never reach 10. The loop is done, and since we have a statement that's outdented below this, we're going to print out, the loop is done. So let's try this in PyCharm. The code here is the same as before, but we're changing the range, so we'll change this to 5, comma 10. We've got the 2 values in there. We'll save and look at the results. Since we start at 5 and we go up to, but we never reach 10, we get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then the loop is done, so we print out the loop is done. Cool. So now it's time for a challenge where you can apply what you know about for loops with single and 2-value ranges. In this challenge, we'll get the same result as the code you wrote earlier, although we'll flip the red and the blue sides. We're going to assign colors to the 10 separate index values, but in this example, blue should be in NeoPixels 0 through 4, and red should be in pixels 5 through 9. But for the challenge, use 2 for loops to solve this. One loop with a single value range, the other loop with a 2 value range. And when those lights are lit up, keep them on forever. So when you solve this, save the solution as for-loop-red-and-blue.py. And bonus, after you solve the first challenge, see if you can solve the challenge with just 1 loop instead of 2. Same result, and if you get the bonus, save that as bonus-blue-and-red.py. So let's pause, try this out. I know you can do it. You can go back and look at the earlier part of the lessons if you need to. And then when you're ready, resume, and let's compare answers. First, let me clear out the code I don't need. I'm going to leave all my colors, but I'll delete everything below these. So to light up the blue side, those lights are 0 through 4. I'm going to use a single range, for I in range, in parentheses 5, colon at the end, and I just need one indented line, that's pixels, between square brackets I, and set that equal to all caps blue. Then for the red side, I want to light up the sequence of lights from 5 through 9. I'm going to use another for loop, but a 2 value range. So the range is going to be 5, 10, and I want to make sure that I set the color to red. Since I want the lights to stay on forever, I'll use a while true loop, colon at the end, and my indented line is simply pass. It's worth making sure that you've got your indentations correct here. Both for loop statements and the while statement are far left and not indented, but the lines under each of the loops is indented once. I'll open the terminal in TO, save and run. This looks spectacular. Nice. Save this as for-loop-blue-and-red.py. And now for the single loop. And always remember to close this extra window and return to code.py. I often make that mistake and wonder why my code isn't running. That's because this code here is saved to my computer. When I close this, I'm back at code.py on CircuitPy. This is where I'm going to run my code. And I'll change the comment up top to bonus blue and red.py. In an earlier lesson, we briefly showed you that you can perform math with variables. Maybe you remember the REPL lesson where we created a variable called color_size and then took that to the power of 3 by saying color_size, the variable name, **3. Well, unsurprisingly, we can add values to variables by using the plus sign. So we can use just one loop here, our first loop, but we're going to add a second indented line after we set the color blue. And this line is going to be pixels, and between square brackets we'll put in a little bit of variable math. I plus 5 equals all caps red. So when I is 0 and we index the light at 0 to blue, the next line will index the light at 0 plus 5 to red. Then when I is 1, we also set 6 to red. I is 2, we set 7 to red. 3, 8 to red. 4, 9 to red. Open terminal in TO, save and run. Same result, super nice, and we'll save that as bonus blue and red.py. So now let's look at our last for loop examples. This time we're going to use a 3 value range. Like the 2 value range, the first value in the range is our start value, and the second value is our stop value, where we go up to, but we never reach this value. But we've got a third value in here, and this is our increment. Normally, we increment the index each time by 1, but in this example, we've added a third value. Here it's the number 2. That's our increment value, so look at the output. We start at 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. 10 is our stop value. We go up to that, but we never reach it, so we stop at 8. And let's show you another example. On the right here, we have a range of 1, 10, 2. Start at 1, go up to 10, but never reach it, and increment by 2s. We start at 1, then go 3, 5, 7, 9, never reach 10, our stop value. We stop at 9. So let's head over to PyCharm, and we'll try both of these out. The first loop is for I in range, 0, 10, 2, and indented below will print in parentheses I, then I'll outdent Shift-Tab. And before I create my second loop in here, I want to print out a blank line. That'll just act as a visual separator between the output of the first loop and the second loop. One way to do this is by just printing an empty string. So we can say print, and then between parens we can say open double quote, close double quote. Nothing between the quotes. That'll just give us a blank line before we start printing out the results from the second loop. Then below this, for the second loop, I'm just going to highlight and copy the first loop above, paste it down below, and change my start value from 0 to 1. Open terminal with TO. We always do that in case there are any errors. They would show up down below. Save it, take a look at the output. We've got to scroll up to see it, but the first set is 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Stop value is 10, so we go up to but never reach 10. That's why you don't see 10. And we've got a space in here that was our empty string. And then we've got output from the second loop, 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So, armed with this knowledge, let's have another challenge. You might remember the earlier challenge from the Get Flashy lesson, which was Tay-Tay in Ireland. Well, this challenge is Tay-Tay Take 2. The Irish Tourist Board loved your work with the Irish Flash, and it has hired you to build yet another Irish color flashing Circuit Playground creation. So begin with the first light in the Circuit Playground, light 0, lighting it up in green. Then wait 0.2 seconds, light the next one in orange. Also wait 0.2 seconds, alternate between green and orange with the wait after each one until all the lights are on. Then turn off all of the lights, wait for 0.2 seconds, and start over, repeating forever. Your creation should look exactly like this one on the right. When you're done with this, save it as single-light-green-orange-flash.py. Pause. You can do it. Again, go back and take a look at your notes if you need to. But when you're ready, resume, and let's compare answers. So in this example, we want a time interval set to 0.2 seconds, so that'll be time_interval equals 0.2, and we want to repeat our light animation forever. Forever means a while true loop, so that's just while, space, capital T true, colon, press return, and indented below this, this is where we put our for loop. Yes, friends, we've got a loop in a loop. The inner loop is going to be a finite loop, a for loop, but we're going to restart that each time over and over again by using while true. So we're going to use a 3-value range here, for I in range, and the 3 numbers are going to be 0, 10, 2, colon at the end. This is going to start at 0, go up to but never reach 10, and increase by 2. So this will give us the values 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. Those are the values for the green lights. So indented below this, we can turn those lights green with the line pixels in between square brackets I equals all caps green. Then we want to sleep after turning the light green so that the light stays on green for 0.2 seconds. That's time.sleep, passing in time_interval. But we also want to light up that next light in orange. So below this, we're going to say pixels, and in between the bracket, I plus 1. We'll set that equal to all caps orange. Then to make it sleep, time sleep, passing in time_interval. So when we go through this, 0 is going to be green, 1 is going to be orange, 2 is going to be green, 3 is going to be orange, 4 is going to be green, 5 is going to be orange, 6 is going to be green, 7 is going to be orange, 8 is going to be green, 9 is going to be orange, and we stop. We never get to 10. Now our loop should be done. So we're going to shift tab to outdent, and we want to shut off all the lights and wait 2 seconds. Remember, when we want to set all the lights to a color, we use the fill functions and pass in a color. We don't set a pixel equal to a color like we did with individual pixels. So we'll say pixels.fill in parentheses, passing in all caps black. And then we'll add another sleep, time.sleep in parentheses time_interval. And after we get here, this is the last line in our while true loop. So what do? We head back to the start of the while true loop, and we restart our for loop where I is going to restart at 0, going up to but never reaching 10. So this will repeat that magnificent pattern over and over again, never stopping. So now open Terminal and TO. Let's save. Take a look at the results. Oh, and my dear friends, the Irish Tourist Board is going to love you. Be sure to save this as single-light-green-orange-flash.py. Now we have one more example to show you. You might think counting up is cool, but sometimes we want to count down. How would we do that? Well, one way is like this. We use the 3-value range, start at 10, then notice the third value, our increment. Here it's -1, so we're going to count down. So we start at 10, our stop value here is -1, meaning we approach -1 but never reach it. So if we start the count at 10 and we go down by 1, what comes before -1? That's 0. So our results are rocket ship countdown, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And there's another way of accomplishing this as well. We'll use the reversed function. That's reversed, past tense with an ed at the end. This function will reverse the order of any values that are passed in between its parentheses. So if we have a range like we do up here, range 11, well, we know this produces the results 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, never reaching 11. But if we surround range 11 with the reversed function, functions always have parentheses. In between the parentheses, we'll pass in our range 11. Then we get the reverse of that range, which is 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Nice! Let's try both of these out in PyCharm, and it's okay to cut out some code that we don't need because we saved this. Our first attempt will be for I in range. That's going to be 3 values between the parens, 10, -1. That's we're going to go down to, but never reach -1, so we'll stop at 0, -1. That's our increment value, so by incrementing by -1, we're counting down. Colon return. Then below that indented, we're going to print I, and then why don't we print an empty string here so that we separate the two values, and let's try that reversed value. So below this, we'll say for, and we've been calling everything I. Let's change the name here to just index. So how about for index in reversed? That's a basic Python function, so code completion knows about that. It's a function, so we follow this with parentheses. And inside those parentheses, we're going to pass in range in parentheses 11. Colon at the end. We'll print out in between parentheses. Now we'll use index, because remember, that's the variable name we have here for the value we're incrementing. And let's save this and take a look at the output. And if we scroll up here, we can see 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, then a blank line. And then 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Perfect. And remember, you can always drag the window divider up here to see more of the output in the terminal if you want to. I'll shrink that back down. Why don't we save this as countdown.py just so that we've got an example of it. And let's cap off this lesson with another challenge. Again, remember to always close the tab of the file you saved so you return back to cone.py on your CircuitPy volume. So this is the out and back challenge. The late Steve Jobs used to like to say that Apple would surprise and delight its customers. So you want to surprise and delight the Irish tourist board with an even better flash. Write a new program to do the following. Begin with the first light on the CircuitPlayground, light 0 flashing in green, then wait 1/10 of a second, and then the next light should flash orange, also 1/10 of a second, alternating until the pattern fills up the CPB. Then turn off each light, starting with light 9, through light 0, waiting 0.1 seconds after turning off each light. Repeat forever. The awesomeness should look like the animation that you see. Save this as lights out and back.py. Pause. Give it a shot. You can use the technique you just learned. And when you're ready, resume, and we'll compare answers. So back in PyCharm, I'm going to set the comment up top to lights out and back.py. Let's set our time interval to 0.1 seconds. The animation will be faster. And let's get rid of the old loops. And now our light animation is going to repeat forever. So we'll start that off with a while true loop. While, capital T, true, colon. And indented inside this while true loop will be 2 for loops. And our first loop will turn on the lights green, then orange, alternating until the CircuitPlayground is full. So this loop is written for I in range, in between parentheses, 0, 10, 2. Don't forget the colon outside the parens. This is a 3-value range. Start at 0 and go up to, but never reach 10, and increment by 2. Then indented inside the loop, we're going to turn on a green light, wait, turn on an orange light, wait, and repeat. So our first line is pixels in brackets I equals all caps green. The next line is time.sleep, passing in time underscore interval. And the next two lines are similar. We've got pixels, brackets, I plus 1 equals this time orange, and also time.sleep passing in time interval. Then press return, outdent just one level with shift tab. You want to be even with the start of the for loop, not all the way to the while loop. Stay inside the while loop, and this is where we enter our second loop. So when we're here, all the lights are on, and we've waited for the time interval, so now let's turn all the lights off. We want to turn the lights off numbered from 9 down to 0, so we're going to use a loop with a 3-value range. For I in range, passing in the values 9, -1, -1, colon. Remember, we want to start at 9 because that's the last light in our 10-light list. Remember, we're 0 index, so the first one is 9 and the last one is 0. That's why we stop at -1, because we will approach -1 but never reach it. And -1 is the increment value because we're going to be counting down. Then inside we simply say pixels, I equals black, time sleep, time interval. That's it. Once the second loop is done, we're going to return to the start of the while loop, and we will repeat forever with our for loops restarting every time we hit them in code. Now you could have written this loop with reversed as well, passing in the range with just a single value 10 in there. Either one would work fine. So let's open up the terminal in TO, save our results, And ho, behold the sparkling splendidness of your creation. Nice work. Be sure to save this as lights out in back.py. If you got these challenges, congratulations, electronics programmer. You have got for loops down. And if you struggled with any of these challenges, return to them again until you're able to complete the challenges without checking your notes. Try them tomorrow, maybe a couple of days later. You can do it. Practice will enhance your awesomeness, and once again, we've had big learning in our lesson. We've learned to use for loops with 3 ranges, single value ranges, 2 value ranges, and 3 value ranges, and we learned to count highest to lowest by using negative step values in a 3 value range, as well as by using the reversed function. Exceptional work, Loopmeister. Keep hacking. There's more big learning to come.
And just so you know the great difficulties I'm going through to try to record this, Admiral Grace, of course, is looking for rubs while I'm trying to create your lesson. Admiral, come on. Jeez Louise. Here. People are trying to learn.